Good morning, North Shore. It's Wednesday, December 9th, and it is quite a seasonally wet day. I think it's a typical winter, although we're not even in winter yet, but late fall Pacific Northwest day. I absolutely love the fog, the rain, the gray, and the drizzle. Feels like home. So I hope today finds each of you enjoying a bit of peace and quiet and excitement as students continue to work on, at this point, second quarter work as we take this 2 weeks moving into break to really work to catch up. It's been my intent, and I shared with staff last week in my Thursday thoughts, and you can find the note on my blog on the website, that it's important for us to slow things down just a bit here this week and next to make sure that our students and our staff have time to catch up so that we can move into the winter break without taking schoolwork with us. It would be great not to have new work assigned over the break and to be able to make sure we have every opportunity to go back, review, revise, and repurpose some of the work we've been doing and make sure we have a chance to get caught up. So I'm really excited about taking this time to catch our breath as we move into our 2-week winter break, where we can pause, put down schoolwork for a bit, and come back in January refreshed, renewed, re-excited as we reimagine our possibilities for our winter and upcoming spring. So anyhow, I hope you find these 2 weeks helpful in finding those assignments in backpacks, or finding assignments at the kitchen table or the dining room table or the hall closet, or wherever assignments sometimes get set in this really curious time that we're in. So this morning, it's my pleasure to kind of pivot our conversation to our racial and educational justice work here in the North Shore School District. And this is work that's going on around the state of Washington, as well as around the country during these days. And so it's my pleasure to invite Melissa Riley, our Assistant Director of Equity and Pedagogy, and Ava Thomas, our Assistant Director for Racial and Educational Justice. And good morning, Melissa and Ava. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning. Doing well. Thank you for having us here this morning.
Yes, thank you. Doing well.
Yeah, it's fabulous to have the opportunity to talk about this really critical and foundational work. And then as part of our racial and educational justice work across the district, we committed to the creation of an ethnic studies program within the district and crafting ethnic studies content for our curriculum really throughout our grades. Yesterday, we announced that we're recruiting members from our district community in our North Shore house to be part of the team that will develop this pilot program. So I'm really excited to have both of you on, because you're going to be leading this work, and just having the opportunity to learn from both of you and with both of you and with our community is such an inspiration. So let me start with Melissa. You're going to be working side by side with Ava. Can you explain the intersection of your department and Ava's department in the development of this ethnic studies pilot, and why that's so important to have multiple departments in the district doing this work?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. So I guess I would like to share that my partnership with the Racial and Educational Justice Department, Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment Department, of which I'm in, has been really powerful this year, and we continue to build momentum. The Racial and Educational Justice Department is really focused on supporting the overarching themes of ethnic studies and the broader concepts that will encompass racial, educational, and social justice. For example, Ava and her team have a depth of content knowledge, as we know, about things like history and culture, and also the intersections of identity that will be elevated through this ethnic studies work, and to benefit every student so that they see themselves represented in the curriculum and in the lessons and in the environments that they're in. The work that I will be doing in partnership with the Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment Department really focuses on the teaching, learning, or classroom application. So the ethnic studies pilot will support our teachers with the critical thinking work and the intentional planning that's really needed to promote curricular integration that's inclusive of each learner that we serve in North Shore.
So would it be fair to say that Ava's department maybe is providing more content, whereas your department might be providing more of the how are we going to teach the content? Or I'm trying to figure out how to really make this kind of real for our folks in our community. Would that be a fair statement, or how do we simplify that?
Yeah, absolutely. And we continue to use terminology in the work that their department is doing, that we're working in partnership with them to support the hearts and minds work that they bring to the table, and that our department is really helping to support the hands-on and the habits, right, that come to fruition in a classroom for teachers.
Yeah, I just think that's really important. Honestly, if I back up just for a minute, I've received several emails just asking, what does ethnic studies mean? Either of you want to take a stab at that? Like when we talk about an ethnic studies course or ethnic studies content, what are we talking about? Because I think there are some people that we've used a lot of terms in the last few months, right, to describe circumstances and hopes and dreams. And I just think it's helpful if we can simplify some of these or make them really clear. So either of you want to take a stab at that? Kind of what are we talking about?
Yeah, I can take a stab at it. I think summing up ethnic studies is about love, justice, and belonging. It's about creating windows and mirrors for our students so that they can see themselves in the curriculum, but that they can see their peers in the curriculum and even people who might not even be in their classroom. It's about community building and bringing in and valuing multiple types of knowledge, not just academic and scholarly knowledge, but thinking about embodied knowledge and experiential knowledge and how we can be honoring the histories of cultures and communities and bringing that into class, while also thinking about identity work. Identity is incredibly central to ethnic studies, and how can we explore our identities and enter that through a place of love and healing and belonging, so that each of our students is feeling valued and feeling like they belong in the classroom, but also that we're shifting a pedagogical practice of the educator in the room, so that it's not just the educator that's doing the teaching, but also that the students are able to teach the teacher, but also teach each other. And so also thinking about connections, we want students to be able to make connections to themselves, connections to their peers, connections to their communities, and then global connections. And ethnic studies has these overarching themes of identity, power, oppression, healing, resistance, and liberation. And we have to be thinking about how can we really honor one another's legacies in a way that's productive and inclusive, and move forward through justice to make sure that we all feel like we belong in this world and in our communities.
That's really helpful. That's really helpful, Ava. And I think, to me, as I listen to you, I always learn from you. What I think about is that seems central to all of the achievement gap, I'm using that in quotes, work, right? We go at this from a strength-based model. If all students felt seen and heard, and I love the windows and mirrors piece, if all students felt that, I think we're more likely to have all students feel like they can access any course, any opportunity. And I think we'll see that educational justice move forward in a powerful way, right? They have to feel like, everyone has to feel like we belong, right? Mm-hmm. That's so powerful. So Ava, your intention is to recruit high school students, educators, and staff, as well as community members. And why is the makeup of this team that's going to work on this pilot so important?
It's important because we want to honor the foundations and the legacies of ethnic studies. And we want to incorporate ethnic studies practice within our work team as well. And when I say honoring the histories of ethnic studies started as a student-led organizing effort because they wanted, and I'm talking about students in higher education, these students across different student union groups really wanted to see themselves in the curriculum, and they wanted to learn about their own histories and their own cultures and those of each other. And so I don't think it would be fair or right to not include students in this effort. And I think that's essential to honoring the foundations and the core of ethnic studies. We also want to think about a community-based approach, and that means bringing in the community, shifting power so it doesn't feel like this top-down thing of we're the ones making the decisions, but rather how can we be bringing the community and the families and the students in so that it's a collaborative effort. And we also want to think about honoring and valuing all the different types of knowledge that are in the room rather than a specific type of knowledge. We want to be including and honoring and incorporating a variety of knowledge types, and that comes with diverse representation within the work team. And then the last thing is that it's incredibly important to have teachers and educators and administrators in the group, because we have to be thinking about this pedagogical praxis, which essentially is how are teachers going to teach this type of work, and how are they going to lift it off the page in a way that really honors the core foundations of ethnic studies.
Yeah, it sounds really important. And I think I often have said you have to go slow at first to go fast later. Mm-hmm. And it's so important to build that firm foundation, right? Like a committee built on rock is going to be much better than one on sand, right? Mm-hmm. So I appreciate the really thoughtful preparation and really intentional work. So Melissa, the work team is going to be involved in this in-depth process. Can you briefly share a bit about the work and what happens next? I know people probably are really excited as we're listening this morning.
Absolutely. So we will begin in January, meeting each month for the remainder of the school year. All members, all of the members that Ava just spoke of, will help to develop the ethnic studies framework, and so we want to work on developing a strong foundation for them. And so that they're knowledgeable. We'll be doing that by using a variety of readings and resources. And then we'll also be working with Jesse Hagopian, and he'll be consulting with us. He's an ethnic studies teacher, editor, and activist in the Seattle School District who's done a lot of work in this realm. He'll lead our team members through lessons and activities that help them better understand and experience ethnic studies. And then together we'll build teaching frameworks by a grade band that will be in partnership with the Curriculum Materials Adoption Committee. We'll be making recommendations for the use of the frameworks into next year, and we will be inviting we'll have a process for inviting feedback along the way that will inform revisions, because we really want to hear from teachers in practice. And then this will guide the work of the ethnic studies high school course, which will also go through an approval process before it goes to the board. And so that's a brief description of a lot of what you heard Ava already share. And so we anticipate that this entire process will take a few years. So there will certainly be lots of opportunities for families, for community, for students and educators to engage.
Right. And I think I want to also make sure the community understands we won't have to wait a few years to see ethnic studies content within courses, but actually to see a standalone course is going to take a little longer, as we really want to make sure we thoughtfully plan it. So
absolutely. Yeah.
Melissa, I know we didn't plan to talk about it this morning necessarily, but can you give just an update as to what the state, I know the legislature had an intention of moving in this direction of ethnic studies for all school districts, all 295 in the state. Mm-hmm. And I'm so proud of you and the team in terms of reaching out to our districts within our region and working collaboratively. If you could just share just a minute or two kind of what the state landscape on this is and kind of how we're choosing in this moment in time because of the pandemic, how we're collaborating.
Yes. So I think originally the bill that came out of the state was a recommendation for an ethnic studies framework in standards that was to be ready at the beginning of this school year, September 2020, and it was predominantly focused on secondary coursework. And there was an addendum, if that's appropriate, and an additional Senate bill that came after the recognition of how important it is to start this work with elementary age students as well. And so now the committee at the state level is working on developing a framework, not new standards, but a framework that will be linked to the current standards that we have across all of our content areas. And they plan to share those recommendations with us at September 2021. You can imagine that there's something powerful about the fact that they will support our work with helping to highlight the integration, the connectedness between the ethnic studies work and the current standards that teachers use. At the same time, we know that this work is too important to wait for. And so we have worked with other colleagues across what we've called the Northside Ethnic Studies Network. And so we are meeting, we're meeting monthly, meeting regularly, and working in partnership with our leaders in Shoreline, in Mukilteo, in Marysville, in Everett, and Edmonds to learn from the work that they're doing, because we're all in different places. But we all feel like if we build a really strong network, that we will be able to help support each other in doing this work together for kids, because it's too important to just live within one school district.
Thank you, Melissa. And I love that Northshore spirit, right? Like that can do, we're going to go out, find people, gather people, and be amazing for our students and our families. So Ava, the plan is to implement P12 primary early learning through 12th grade ethnic studies framework and content for a high school course. How is that work different? So I don't want people to confuse the two bodies of work.
Yeah, so I'll start with the framework first. The framework is really about laying the groundwork and I guess the guiding outline for what ethnic studies looks like across grade bands. And so while there's going to be one ethnic studies framework, like Melissa said, it's going to be broken down into grade banded sections. So there's going to be a preschool through second grade, 3 through 5th grade, 6th through 8th grade, and 9th through 12th grade, because the way that ethnic studies looks in a preschool class is going to look different than the way ethnic studies looks in a 12th grade class.
What?
I know. The great thing, though, about ethnic studies is that it doesn't have to be just a standalone class.
Absolutely.
It can be integrated into any and all classes and any and all grade levels. And so that's really what the ethnic studies framework is about. It's about helping educators think about how they can teach through a lens of ethnic studies, regardless of the subject or grade level that they're teaching. So that's what the ethnic studies framework is about. We're also going to be building out a high school course for ethnic studies, which will be the standalone course. And that will be really centered on the overarching themes of ethnic studies and teaching into that. We also know that ethnic studies, while it can be a very specific laid out curriculum, we're going to be very intentional about how we do that, because we know that this type of curriculum has to be timeless, because it incorporates the local and global connections that are going on in our communities and our world. And so the way that we're going to be structuring this high school course is a way that teaches into and speaks into that. So yes, we're making the historical connections, and we'll have some anchoring foundational pieces, and there's going to be room for teachers to think about how they can pull in current events that are happening.
I think that's really helpful. I mean, with 94 languages spoken in our schools, we have a rich and diverse history, I think, from which to pull. So, Ava, I was trying to remember, I was reading a research article recently that talked about the damages of waiting till secondary to teach ethnic studies, that in fact, there's research that says the earlier we start talking about this, actually, the better. Are you connected with that research at all? Or do you know what I'm talking about? Like,
I know that I'm not 100% sure about the specific research, but I know what you're getting at.
Yeah.
And that is that right now, and more normatively, this isn't just in Northshore, this is across the United States, there's curriculum that's being taught through a specific lens. And that lens is not 100% bringing life and bringing diversity and representation and justice into the classroom.
Right.
And so when we wait till secondary to be teaching through a lens of ethnic studies, students have spent their maybe primary years learning, maybe not through that lens.
Yeah.
And so what we're wanting to do is streamline this process and really think about the systems wide work of ethnic studies in Northshore, and think about how from preschool early learning to 12th grade, how we can be creating these through lines for students so that teachers each year can be building off of the previous year, so that we're not spending the time 100% of the time trying to undo and unlearn and relearn, but that we can be teaching into this ethnic studies idea and this ethnic studies lens from preschool to 12th grade across Northshore School District.
Yeah, that's really helpful, Ava. Thank you. And I could see, I remember coaching basketball for years and how hard it is if someone has a particular shooting style that we need to adjust, right? It's easier to teach it from the beginning. So I think there are a lot of metaphors and ways to think about that. So Melissa, the Wednesday work team is just going to be one way to engage our Northshore community in this process. What are other ways that will allow our students, staff, and community members to be able to have their voices included in this process? Because, I mean, in Northshore, in our house, we really want to be collaborative, hear from everybody, those who are really excited, those who are a little concerned, worried, wary, hopeful, inspired, right? Like every perspective, we really want to try to be inclusive of that at this time.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for asking. That certainly has been on our minds, and we've had lots of conversations about how a work team gets formed, but that can't be the only way in which we invite input, and that we seek input from people in the community that are representative of who we're trying to serve and who we're trying to learn from as well. And so we're committed to continuing to address any constraints that are, people from, let's say, participating on a Wednesday morning. And so at this moment, I can say that much like the work teams that are facilitated through curriculum instruction and assessment department, we will share our work. We'll be very transparent about that and provide numerous opportunities for feedback that are accessible to as many people as possible. We really want to be thoughtful about reaching out within the realms of in our district. Additionally, as teachers use the framework to develop lessons and resources, we certainly will have a process in place for teachers to gather feedback from students and families that will come back to the team and be cyclical and informing our process and our revisions. All that being said, though, honestly, Dr. Reed, what I do want to say is that because our student and community voice is imperative to this work, additional opportunities for student and community members to participate will be really defined, even defining what participation means, and will be informed by the students and the community members. That's part of the role of the students and the members that will be on the team that will make this work less school-centric and district-centric, but community-centered, so that we can think about this work in partnership with our students and community members on the team that will help to inform how they believe is the best way to go about reaching out within the community. And we're very hopeful for to co-construct non-traditional mechanisms to do that as we learn and grow through this process with the people that are in the space, whatever that learning space is.
Yeah, and we're discovering we can find all types of learning spaces, right?
Online, we're learning. Yes, absolutely. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually really inspired by that, because I think that our strength lies in our ability to think divergently and be able to figure out this ginormous North Shore puzzle, this jigsaw puzzle, right? And everybody has a piece of it, right? And we're not done till everyone's piece is put in the puzzle. So, and I'm kind of holding my piece right now, just because I don't know if I have a corner or if I have a, but I think that all of us have to recognize that when we're done, this puzzle is going to create this, I think, tapestry of incredible work that will lift all of us up, right? So our district can be a better version of itself, which again, that transforms our future, our community, and our country. So I'm thrilled. I can't wait to see the progress. And Ava, where can anyone find this interest form online? Like, I can't imagine anyone not wanting to be part of this work.
Yes, you can find it at www.northshore.nsd.org/ethnic studies. Or you can go to the main page, nsd.org, and then scroll to news and events. And then there's going to be a button that says join the Ethnic Studies pilot work team. So either way.
Well, it looks fabulous. And any last words for our community this morning, Melissa or Ava?
I just want to go back to the core of ethnic studies and it really being about love, justice, and belonging. This work is not meant to divide. It's meant to bring us together, and it's meant to connect us even deeper. And so I'm incredibly excited about ethnic studies and the future that means for North Shore.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Melissa?
Oh, no. I just was going to say I really appreciate this time to have this conversation and really to begin to reimagine what schools look like for our students, with students at the center and at the heart of this work. I think that we are on a new and innovative path to change the way that we do things, and that going through this entire process is actually going to be a blueprint for how we continue to think about the work that we do with children in our educational system. So thank you.
Yeah, I think it's critical. I wrote down love, justice, and belonging. And what community member or person in our global world doesn't want that for their children and themselves, right? Like, I just think if we keep our students and our ability to keep love, justice, and belonging for each and every one of them at our core, we're not going to go off on a wrong track. Like, this is the right work. So I want to thank both of you for being here and reminding us that this is our core work and leading us and our community through this. It's transformational work and timely work. So thank you for joining me today. And for those of you out in our broader North Shore house, thanks for joining us today. And I encourage you to think about participating in this work. And until next week, be safe, be healthy, and be kind to one another. And we look forward to seeing you next Wednesday morning. Thank you.